Hello everyone, welcome back to another video of environmental statistics. This is the last video of the series in which we will understand about correlation and regression with the help of some questions. Before starting the video, I just want to inform you all that for the PDF of this series, you can join my Telegram channel. In case if you haven't seen the previous videos as well as join my Telegram channel, you can check it from the link given in the description. Starting with the first question, here we have to select whether the statements are correct or not. Statement first is arithmetic mean is greater than the geometric mean for two non-equal positive real numbers. Statement second is correlation coefficient is a confirmatory tool to establish causal relationship between two variables. Statement third is regression coefficient is independent of change of origin. So now before answering this, let's know about the correlation coefficient and regression coefficient. Correlation is the relationship between two or more variables which vary with the other in the same or the opposite direction, whereas regression is a mathematical measure which shows the average relationship between the two variables. In correlation, both the variables, that is x and y, are random variables, whereas in regression the x is a random variable and y is fixed. Sometimes the both can be random variables. The correlation finds out the degree of relationship between two variables, but it does not tell us about the cause and effect of the variable, whereas the regression indicates the cause and effect relationship between the variables. Correlation is used for testing and verifying the relationship between two variables, and regression is used for prediction of one value in respect to the other given value. The correlation coefficient is a relative measure and its range lies between plus minus 1. The regression coefficient is an absolute figure, and if we know the value of independent variable, we can find the value of the dependent variable. The correlation has limited application because it is confined only to linear relationship between the variables, but the regression has wide applications as it studies linear and the non-linear relationship between the variables. If coefficient correlation is positive, then the two variables are positively correlated and vice versa. And if the regression coefficient explains that the decrease in one variable is associated with the increase in the other variable. So here we got that the correlation coefficient does not tells us about the causal effect relationship between the two variables. So this will be our wrong statement. So after eliminating this, we will get our correct answer, which will be option third, that is statement A and C. Next, let's see the second question, in which we have to tell the correct statement regarding the lines of regression between two variables x and y. Statement 1 is the correlation between x and y is the geometric mean of the regression coefficient of y on x and x on y. Statement second is if the variables are uncorrelated, the two lines of regression are perpendicular to each other. Statement third is if the regression coefficient y on x is greater than 1, the coefficient of x on y must also be greater than 1. So, for solving this question, let's see the properties of correlation coefficient and regression coefficient. First property of correlation coefficient is that It is a measure of closeness between the two variables. Second property states that it lies between -1 to +1 and is denoted by the symbol R. Third property states that the correlation is perfect and positive if the value of R is equal to 1, and it is perfect and negative if value of R is equal to -1. The fourth property is if the value of correlation coefficient R is equal to 0, then there is no correlation between the two variables and they are said to be independent. Some properties of regression coefficients are: first is the correlation coefficient is the geometric mean between the regression coefficient. Second is if one of the regression coefficient is greater than 1, the other must be less than 1 in numbers. Third property is the correlation coefficient and regression coefficients have the same sign. Fourth property is the arithmetic mean of regression coefficients is greater than the correlation coefficient. And the last property is regression coefficients are independent of the origin but not on scale. So here we got that the statement third is incorrect, which states that if the regression coefficient y on x is greater than 1, the other must also be greater than 1. But if regression coefficient is greater than 1, the other must be less than 1. So after eliminating statement third, we get our answer, which is option 1, that is statement A and B only. Third question is assertion reason type of a question in which the assertion states that regression analysis is suitable for two variables having a linear causal relationship between them. And the reason given here is the causal relationship between two variables is never curvilinear. Now let's see the different types of correlation. The first is positive and negative correlation. The positive correlation is a type of correlation in which the two variables are directly proportional to one another. That is, with the increase in one variable, the other variable also increases. Whereas in negative correlation, the two variables are inversely proportional to one another. That is, if the one variable increases, the other variable will decrease. The positive correlation, the correlation coefficient is equal to +1, whereas for negative correlation, the correlation coefficient is -1. Next is the simple and multiple correlation. The simple correlation gives the relationship between two variables, whereas the multiple correlation gives the relationship between more than two variables at a time. Third is the partial and total correlation. In partial correlation, we study the two variables excluding some other variables, whereas in total correlation, we study all the facts. Last is the linear and non-linear correlation. If the ratio of change between the two variables x and y is uniform, that is same, then it will be called as linear correlation. Whereas if the change in one variable is not constant to the ratio of amount of change in the other variable, it is known as non-linear correlation or curvilinear. Now let's go back to the question. So here we got that the causal relationship between two variables can be curvilinear or non-linear. So our correct option will be option third, that is assertion is correct but reason is not correct. Next question is, the functional relationship of soil is expressed in terms of soil is equal to climate plus organism and relief. So what this type of relationship is considered as? For answering the question, let's see the different types of regression. First is the simple regression. In simple regression, the dependent variable is a function of a single independent variable. Whereas the second is multiple regression, in which there are dependent variables which are function of two or more independent variables. As we know that the independent variables are the treatment variables which causes the change in the dependent variables. So the dependent variables are the criterion, whereas the independent variables are known as the predictors. The multiple regressions can be of two types. First is linear regression and second is non-linear regression. In linear regression, the dependent variable is linearly correlated with the independent variable, whereas in non-linear regression, the dependent variable has a non-linear correlation with the independent variable. So here, as we see that there are different types of independent variables which are affecting the soil, which is a dependent variable. So we got our answer, which will be the option 4, that is multiple linear regression. The last question is, to find out the degree of linear relationship between age and height of tree, the parameter to be estimated is, so here the correct option will be option second, that is correlation coefficient, which tells the relationship between any two variables. Let's know about the other options. The standard deviation tells that how much a sample is deviating from a mean. The median gives the middlemost value of any data set, and the standard error quantifies that how much precise our result is. That's all for today. Hope you liked it. We will come back with another video. Till then, thanks for watching.